Oh, hey, Kim, how you doing?
How are you?
Very good. Good to see
Kim?
you here.
Yes, you too.
Oh, yeah.
Big long weekend coming up.
Well, and that's coming up too, but I just got back from a nice trip actually up north. Up in the Arrowhead region, up near Grand Portage, Grand Moraine.
Were you just camping or?
No, it was actually work. I work at the Mille Lacs Indian Museum. We went up there to the reservation to see what was going on there, and then we went to Boys Fort afterwards. And that's a long drive. It is. It really is. It almost makes you want to buy land up there. Okay. Okay, I'd like to begin the Public Works Committee for Wednesday, June 29th. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming here today. And we are going to be talking, first thing I want to mention is this is our second meeting now for a public discussion about the recycling center itself. And that's all what we're going to be talking about here today. And the last meeting that we had, I had talked with some of you and I realized that there was a lot of information that's just plain missing. People just really didn't know much about what was going on. So I think this is really important. We have this one today as an informational meeting because we're going to have people talk about why we're even considering this and what's and this is for all of us here to be able to just see what's going on here. What are we talking about here? So for today, what I'd like to do is not on the agenda here. I'm not going to go through with the open forum yet. I'd like to go straight to the presentations, and then we're going to have the committee members here ask the questions, and then we're going to go through the whole presentation. Then we'll have at the end, anybody who has questions, please come at that time after we go through all of this. And I think what you'll find is we'll probably ask a lot of the same questions that you'll probably want to know as well. So, and the other thing I wanted to emphasize today, I don't think we're going to be comfortable making any type of recommendation to the city council. So today it's more informational and so that we can ask these questions that need to be asked. And at the end, have the public as well ask the questions that they want to ask too. Yes, Roger.
Okay, I understand the format, but you've got several presentations that are being made tonight.
Correct.
And the public can't speak until the very end, correct?
I'd like it to be that way because I think just to keep it moving, and then if you have questions, please write them down.
So the only problem with that is let's say the fire chief or someone else has to leave after the presentation. That doesn't give us a chance.
I've been assured that they will be here at the end to answer the questions because otherwise it wouldn't work out. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we will then first, the second thing on here is the approval of the minutes from the Public Works Committee meeting last month. And do I have any, does anyone want to make a motion about that to approve them or any types of questions you might have?
Make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, you have a second?
Second.
Yes.
May I make a comment about the minutes before you read them?
Sure.
Yes, my name is Paul West. I'm at 24839 Cove Trail. I've spoken for you at the public meeting back in April.
Right.
I read the minutes. I was at the meeting, and in the minutes, you'll see under public forum that it states you opened the public forum, and then it states that Mr. Bloomer made all these comments about what was the issue, what was the recycling center, why was it being done, and that is inaccurate. Mr. Bloomer did not make any comments before the public comment period was opened up. He went directly into allowing the public to comment, and Mr. Bloomer never gave us any public information prior to us making our comments. So the way that's presented in the minutes is not accurate, like how the meeting was conducted. So I just leave that.
You want to make that change, or you want to make that?
Why make it? Because it makes it look like the public was adequately informed.
No, I'm not asking why. I'm just asking you wanted to make that change, right?
Those paragraphs struck
Mhm.
because they were not adequately.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Chairman, before you approve the minutes, it appears that you're probably getting ready to approve it. There are some errors, and one of the things that I highlighted is that there are at least 4 times throughout the minutes that the term Lower Bass Lake Road is mentioned rather than Lower Roy Lake Road. I can't believe that.
Those corrections
wasn't
were made
But,
Yeah.
for the road.
but they weren't in the document we got.
It's online.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, so we have that, rather than saying that they explain the concept plan developed, but Tom, you did explain about the YSIF.
I
thought-
started to, we didn't get through it all. That's why we're going through this tonight,
Yeah,
was to
exactly.
give me the
There were
opportunity to
comments
say.
made prior to opening up your public comment.
And this is why, because you talk over the
No, I
committee.
didn't. I came to
You
the
had a
podium
chance.
when you
And you're doing it
asked.
right now.
Okay, let's,
You have a chance to talk at the end of this meeting, Roger. Please sit down.
Listen to the YouTube meeting.
Sit down.
okay, let's get to the meeting here then. But as far as the meetings, if we want to say that there wasn't much explanation, that is the reason why we're doing this as well today, so that we can get to that type of explanation, not just by Tom, but by all these members that we're going to have speak. So I'm not sure what to do here, just to say,
So what would normally happen with minutes? Do the committee members have any changes they would like to suggest, or would they like to make a motion to approve?
okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we review and then make any adjustments as necessary.
okay. Well, we should make that, so we can just hold off on that for now?
Normally, what would have happened is the committee members read the minutes, the draft minutes that you were provided. And if you noticed anything that was inaccurate or incorrect,
Mhm.
you suggest those corrections. Those corrections are then made, and with those corrections, the minutes are approved.
Okay,
If you don't have any corrections in the minutes, or just somebody makes a motion to approve the minutes.
would anyone like to make a correction then?
Well, Mr.
Or
Chairman,
not?
I guess I approved it because I had seen online where that Lower Bass Lake Road was changed. And I'm not aware of any other changes to the minutes, so that's why I moved for approval.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Anyone?
There's no second.
Oh, okay.
second.
Gil seconded it. So is all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, it's passed out for that. So now I'd like to go ahead and begin then with the status of the recycling project. And Tom, I think you're the one that's going to be
Yeah,
talking about that.
so basically what I want to do is just really just go through the 2 memos that I provided to everyone, and it's in the packet. And this really just outlines the status of, the first memo outlines the status of the recycling project as it was on 6/21. Following last month's public hearing where strong opposition was expressed to the relocation of the city's drop-off recycling site, it was decided to conduct a survey to measure the interest in continuing the service and in what capacity and what location. Survey questions had been prepared and a survey monkey was opened to get people's interests, get interested people's opinion of what to do with the recycling program in Nisswa. Please look for that information on the city's website, the Facebook page, and at the recycling site itself. The survey will be open until July 8th to give plenty of time for people to express their opinion. Results of the survey will be provided at our July Public Works Committee meeting and on the city's website. The second item we need to address is the public safety concern, having the recycling continue at the fire hall site. With that, we will hear from the fire chief, Sean Bailey, who's here tonight. to get his thoughts on the continuing of the recycling site at the fire hall. The third item we wanted to address is after last month's meeting was to get information about what is allowed for the development of the land to the east of the current recycling site that the city owns. Amber Peterson, our Parks Director, is here, and she will go over the documents that you have been provided in the packet, and she has a memo that she's also provided, and she will go through the latest information we have on what we can do with that site, and if we wanted to expand into that site, what next steps would be required. Following that, I've asked Joe DeBell to prepare estimates for a recycling site of similar dimensions and specs for both sites, whether it's at the fire hall or out at what would be the concept site. So he will go through those estimates that he's prepared and give you guys a time to ask questions about those estimates. I also asked the Logies from Waste Partners to address some issues that we brought up at the last one. There was a discussion of whether we should provide recycling more through curbside recycling versus having the drop off site that we do. And so they have provided an email, I believe an email letter and a map to begin this, the discussion on drop off recycling and their opinion on continuing a drop off site. And they'll be here to answer your questions as well. And offer their opinion on where they think the recycling should go for our community. Lastly, other things I put in here to consider, the county will again provide half of our operational expenses, $35,000 for 2023. They did say if we limit who can access the site, they will likely stop our funding of the site. They also said we cannot charge a fee for access to our site and expect to get continued county funding for operation. One positive point they offered is that they encourage us to add fencing to either site and limit our hours of operation to prevent abuse. After that, I go into a timeline. As you know, we've already initiated the survey. It's underway. We are getting pretty good participation on that. I don't have any kind of results or anything to go over tonight. That will be provided in July, as I suggested. Tonight, we are going to hear, as I earlier said, we're going to hear from the fire chief to talk about the recycling at its existing site. We're going to hear cost estimates from the city engineer, and we're going to hear what can be done with the land to the east of the existing site, should we decide to expand there. And then I'm obviously going through my briefing, and then the Logies are going to talk about curbside recycling. In July, we'll present the results of the survey, and we'll take questions on that and try to draw some conclusions from what that data is telling us. And with that, I hope to make a recommendation to the city council of whether to get out of the recycling altogether, continue with the site at the existing location behind the fire hall, or begin further work with a new site out by the city sewer plant. Following that recommendation to the city council, they will likely take some sort of action in August. Following that action in August, this committee will review what the council has done at our August meeting to determine what steps are next. Funding, details of project in either location, or how to decommission the existing site. My next memo, this is kind of more of, it goes into the history of why we prepared the concept drawing in the first place. What was the conditions that caused us to begin to look at improvements for the recycling program? So as some of you may know, the county originally had 5 recycling sites, and they've chosen to drop them down to 2. Which would have eliminated our site altogether too. The city council and had said they wished to continue our site, and we approached the county with that, and they agreed to allow us to continue it at least as is for the short term. We do have to make some improvements to continue to offer recycling here. One is the fencing. They do suggest that that's necessary, so. The city council also voted to continue the site with or without the county's cost participation for operation. So we know now that the county is still providing that funding through 2023, but beyond that, I have no commitment. Once we determine what we're going to do with the site, we will have to figure out a funding mechanism for any improvements we're going to make out there. That hasn't been determined yet. We haven't done any work with that other than very preliminary. So that will be work for a later date to this committee. The main reason we were looking at improving the site, no matter where it's at, is every year I've been here, the volume is steadily increased of the amount of material that we're getting. I've been here for 14 years. And there hasn't been a year yet where it hasn't gone up. The volume has peaked so bad on the 4th of July that our hauler is here 6 or 7 days a week moving containers. So we need to have the capacity to add more containers to allow breaks in the hauling to occur. I mentioned in here what our volume was in 2015, which was 217 tons. In 2020, that increased to 480, so more than double. Then I bring up the traffic conflicts with the fire department, but I'm going to let Sean discuss that with you when he comes up. The space, the existing park, that's an issue Amber's going to discuss. And then lastly, I write there about we want the ability to close the site when there's abuse. We do get a fair amount of things that are dropped off that shouldn't be. We do need opportunities to clean and maintain the site. It would be nice to be able to close the site for short times to do that. So the layout that you saw in the concept drawing that's on the wall there wasn't just pulled out of the air. We actually, we discussed that with Waste Partners, our current hauler. We discussed it with our city engineer, how to provide an adequate site that would, one, not only deal with the volume we have today, but deal with the volume we would have for the foreseeable future and with the growth we have, and provide greater convenience and better access to the bins. So maybe some of the abuse would stop, the dumping alongside the containers that are full. So that's the size of it was determined by that. The size is nearly 3 times, the concept size is about 3 times the size of what we have today. We're hoping to get down to a situation where the hauler has to only work 5 days a week servicing the site. We also are allowing for, so the bins can be moved from one side to the other to allow maintenance such as snow plowing to occur while the site remains open. And then we also wanted to incorporate some other services that we're already doing into the new site, all in one location. The city impound lot for cars. We have a demo site for concrete and other things that the projects that the city's working on. All of that would be in one site. We already accept brush and tree debris out there, leaves. This would put it all in one site, one gate, close to our maintenance facility, making it much easier for us to handle. We show the design with a fence all the way around it to trap debris. Anybody who works around the fire hall or in the park is familiar with it. That debris does blow around and it finds its way into all the surrounding properties. I don't know how the homeowners around there feel about that. I imagine a few of them are also noticing debris in their property. The fencing that we're proposing would greatly cut that down. As I mentioned earlier, the site would allow for greater access to the bins, walking area around them, room to move. So people would be more able to get the stuff into the bins the way they should. The site would be paved, mostly to allow people access to everything without their cars getting dirty. We have a wide variety of people using that site, so I think it's important that access is easy and convenient. And then we're consolidating similar materials. We already have the sewer plant out there, as many of you are aware. I already mentioned that we have the demolition site out there. This would put all of that in one spot. Lastly, as you know, there's another map over there showing the city has been considering adding a backage road that would access Lower Roy Lake Road, that would cut off the residential areas or cut off the truck traffic from the residential areas when it's built, giving them direct access to our gravel pit that the recycling site would be on, 2, our sewer plant, and 3, the state pit that's out there. They deposit snow out there every winter. They do other, when they have road projects in the area, they access the site sometimes with several trucks. This would take them off of that area. It gives them a direct route. And as you are also aware, Copper Creek, local landscaper, also uses Lower Ray Lake Road currently with a lot of truck traffic. This would give them an alternate route to hopefully move some of that away from there. These 2 projects will not happen at the same time. That would be virtually impossible to coordinate. It's likely the recycling site will predate the backage road being built. However, we're looking at this as a very long-term way, 20 years or more. So I would say by the time the 20 years has come and passed, you will likely see both facilities in place. With that, I think the last thing I mentioned was aesthetics. Because it's not surrounded by a lot of homes at this time, and there's already things out there of similar nature, they go together. It'd be more conducive, I think, to have it out there. And then cost. We already own the property. We've owned it for a long time. So if we needed to find an alternate site for the recycling from where it is today, it's the only piece of property the city owns that would be easily converted to a recycling site. And because it's well suited to this type of purpose, there's no trees in the way, there's no existing structures. The cost of construction would be lower than probably most sites we could look at outside of it. So, with that, I guess I would open it up to questions from you guys or thoughts.
Well, does anyone have a question here? What about Tom? Do you have anything that you'd like to ask?
In the discussions with the county, was there ever the question asked if possibility, we pay a recycling fee to the county? Saying that the city of Nisswa's residents fees to support the operation here?
So they do give us $35,000 annually, and that's where that's coming from. That basically pays the hauling costs. As far as construction, so far they've flatly refused to participate in that. We were even in meeting with some of the board members, and they wouldn't go there. Their pushback on that is that they are in the process of refining their own site out at the landfill by the airport, and they would rather push all of the recycling services to that site and eliminate this one. So they're not interested in participating in it, but they have said that we could provide a site. They wouldn't prohibit it.
They're kind of hamstringing you as far as you can't charge a fee.
Right. In certain ways, I think that's something we would have to have maybe further discussions on, is what we can and can't charge for. Because for instance, we don't charge anything for debris at this time. But maybe, that's not a recycling service that they're offering. Can we charge for that? things of convenience. So if right now people drop off television sets, they're not accepted. You can't just drop them off. If it's fenced in, we could offer possibly a convenience fee of, we'll truck it over to the main landfill. Maybe we charge $20 for somebody to drop off a television set. So it would pay for our guy and truck to haul it over there. Maybe we make a little bit on it. I don't know. We haven't figured that out, how it would be paid for. Could be on the property taxes. We're kind of at their mercy, as you suggest, if they want to.
Well, it sounds like they definitely will cut off funding if the city starts to charge. Is that correct?
That's what they have said.
So your calculations then for funding that, are they assuming that will get cut off? I mean, how are you figuring it now?
So right now, when you see the cost of it, that's really just the hauling cost. So whether it's at its current site or out there, I don't think the hauling cost will change a huge amount. If anything, it might go down if they don't have to send a guy out here on Sunday or on a holiday. Although the volume will maybe go up.
Mhm.
So at this time, without having any information one way or another, I'm assuming that the cost would stay about the same. The county has indicated that they will likely continue to provide half of our hauling costs. So in today's dollars, I'm saying we would have to continue to provide $35,000 annually to operate the site. As far as construction of the site, none of that's been determined where that money would come from. That's, if we decide to go further with the project, that would be the next step, is figuring out how to make it pay.
Do you have any other questions, Tom? That you want to ask? Okay, do you have any more, Gil? You know, the one thing I was wondering about is the contract that we have currently with the Waste Partners. Is that do we pay just a fixed fee for the year based upon what they quoted to us, or do we pay by the ton?
I believe it's fixed fee.
It's a fixed fee that we pay? Okay. And then as far as those numbers, you know, for how much that volume that we've been having taken, you know, that's based upon, what was that again? I saw this.
So there's a tonnage of material that's brought in, and so, yeah. I'll let
Well,
Trey
maybe he
speak to
could
that.
tell-
He
No
has
worries.
more
I
details
got
than
the
I do.
numbers in front of me. Dre with Waste Partners, of course. Just to provide you some background, of course, we've been hauling it since 2019. You've been here longer than that. So the data before that, we're not necessarily privy to, but on 2019, we hauled 446 ton. 2020 was the 486. Last year in 2021 was 535 tons. And we're projecting this year, while we had kind of a late spring and we're actually on par with last year, we project that to increase yet again. We're looking at about 555 tons. So it continues to increase for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Cam, do you have any questions? Cam?
The 70,000 that it's costing us currently, is the county fixed on paying for half of that, or are they capped out at 35,000 a year? If we continue to see accelerated growth, are they going to continue to increase their funding?
They've occasionally increased it. The last 2, they've just stated it, they would pay half. So the last 2 years, our costs haven't changed. The Waste Partners have been able to hold their costs steady, and so that way we've been fortunate. So I can't say if they would match say if they had to charge 10% more or something this year. I don't know if the county would come up that amount. I don't know.
What would the per address charge be for doing curbside pickup?
How many households are there? Excuse me. How many households are in this one currently? Around 300 was my guess.
Oh, it's all of that. We have about 500 sewer connections, so it's more, I would say it's 600 or 700.
Okay. So everything in my business is based on dividing a cost of how long it takes to do it by the number of people. So I didn't even honestly know how many households were in the city of Nisswa. You're looking at 700 stops can be done in a day if you're built like the city of Brainerd, where you're running up and down alleys, doing two sides potentially at the same time, things of that nature. But 700 is a very large day for one person for doing that. So maybe 2 days. Just consider the fact that those trucks cost about $185 an hour with a driver, and then you've got disposal on top of that. So 10 hours a day, 2 days a week. Let's just say that's probably close to $3,000 a week to provide that curbside service. That doesn't mean that's what you'll get charged. And that's a complicated factor that we were talking about earlier, that the state of Minnesota does not allow us as a hauler to charge any more for recycling than we do for trash. And you guys ask, well, how do I do that? Well, that's very difficult, but everybody's bill goes up when they have to start providing curbside service to another community. And all we ask is that every hauler that services your community be required to do the same thing. That's how we do it. Competitively, we all have to then raise our rates overall. I'd say right now, we've got about 13,000 residential accounts, and we recycle at about 7,000, about 50%. Every time we add another group, you know, the whole customer base pays for that to a certain extent. But that's how that's done. So it won't truly cost if everyone in Crow Wing County recycled, that true cost would come more apparent. But there's some efficiencies with that as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say for a community this size, if you were going to bid out the entire city to get one company to do the recycling, 10 to 12 bucks a month, it costs the exact same thing to pick up recycling as it does trash.
Right.
The difference is in the disposal of the materials and how heavy it is. And how many stops you can do in a day with one versus the other. So that's really the primary differences in it. So
And that's just for the recycling side, right?
that's just for recycling.
Okay.
Yep.
So it would be greater than double what we're paying for curbside pickup for trash right now, because we'd be adding the recycling, and then you're looking at extra costs as well. So I'm just trying to get an idea of, if I'm paying $25 a month for trash pickup, am I looking at $60 a month for trash and recycling? Or
You're probably looking at maybe $1 to $1.50 a month increase in your current services.
in total?
Because all of my customers, all of Crow Wing County will be paying for that because of the way the state set this up. The state's, if I could go out and charge someone for recycling, they'd be paying 12 bucks a month for it. I'd be buying different types of trucks and all that kind of thing, but because I can't do that, because I can't charge a resident that recycles any more than a resident that doesn't recycle, every customer pays for it.
Okay.
So kind of to clarify that a little.
That's hard to follow, okay?
If the city did as you suggested and we required every hauler to provide curbside recycling.
Competition will dictate how much I'm able to charge.
So you think that a typical bill would go up $1.25 a month?
I'm saying that the actual cost for curbside collection to the city of Nisswa might change the rate by $1 to $1.50 a month. But it's $1.50 a month for every resident of Crow Wing County that I'm raising. It's not just the city of Nisswa. It's just, again, it's a cost. Everything is competitive, right? You can buy a loaf of bread at one grocery store and it's a different price than another grocery store. It's the same piece of bread.
Oh, so you're saying.
But
that
competition
$1.25
determines what I can charge and not charge in some communities. I may not make as much money in the city of Nisswa doing it, but that is an indicating factor as to what you can and can't charge. And currently, when you look at the city of Brainerd, city of Baxter, Cross Lake, Pequot Lakes, Pine River, all of them now offer curbside recycling and require all their haulers to do it. The rate did not change that much over the course of that time. Just everyone's customer base paid for it. So it doesn't look like it's that much. The problem is how many can't get serviced in your community.
That was my next question
Yeah.
for you. Has there been, I know you've looked at it a little bit and that's why you provided this Pequot overview, but how much of Nisswa wouldn't be able to be serviced?
So that should be the city of Nisswa, correct?
It is.
Why was I thinking it was Pequot? Okay,
Yeah, so that, again, that was a very quick and dirty, it was,
Sure.
you know, Don was like, hey, is there something you can quick put together that gives us an idea of
Yeah.
what in our community is serviceable? So quite honestly, my brother jumps in a pickup truck and we zipped around Nisswa quick and yeah, I think we can get down that one. So a recycling truck, the efficiencies behind recycling is that you collect a lot with one truck, right?
Right.
But it's a big truck. It can't do a drive and it can't get down someone's narrow driveway. So that's a quick and dirty map of the city of Nisswa to say, these are generally the roads we can get down. Green means good. I think he gave you a nice little legend down there that
Yeah.
kind of explains it. Again, comparing the city of Nisswa to something like a Brainerd where it's very alley based. You know, you guys have the lakes. You like the, you know, like to get down to that dead end road, set up your dock and boom, you're there. It's not conducive to a recycling truck. So definitely areas we can service and then areas that we can't.
sure.
And then ones that, of course, I think we even highlighted, you know, we struggle a lot too with, will the landowner or a customer provide us a place to turn around? You know, the road might dead end there. We can get down it, you know, if they let us back into their driveway and turn around, you're serviceable, but it's not necessarily a cul-de-sac down there to make a loop.
Mr. Chairman,
Mm-hmm.
just a quick question. Does the city of Nisswa have an ordinance that requires property owners to have trash pickup?
We do not.
So that would be another issue involved here is, you know, it doesn't make any, you know, if I don't pay for garbage pickup, well, I'm not going to pay for recycling either, am I? Unless there's an ordinance that says I have to.
Correct. That's part of the popularity with the recycling site that we have
Right.
today, is that there are people who don't pay for
Who
garbage
don't pay
service.
and they burn the garbage or get rid of it somehow. So that's, I guess, another issue that's involved with this.
If I may add some clarity to that, if you don't mind. That's kind of one of the discussions we had here, and I know it gets very convoluted when we kind of talk about what the addition for recycling fee is. Overnight, if you guys implemented recycling to all haulers, your bill is not going up overnight, right? It's a service that's added that the Minnesota says we can't charge for. Your bill's not going to change. Now, over time, it might change as we understand our efficiencies. The reason we ask that all haulers be required to offer recycling is that if one, let's say we offer recycling and one of our competitors decides, "Oh, I'm not going to offer that service," for folks that don't want recycling, they can potentially get that service, that generic garbage service, at a cheaper rate. What that does is that creates a division in, you know, why should we offer it if we're excluding a section of customer base? By making all the haulers on that level playing field, it at least levels that potential monthly fee. And then if you want to recycle, it's still your choice. However, that fee is being cast across all the residents.
I want to be clear about one thing, and I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. If the city of Nisswa eliminated our drop-off site, people could still have access to a drop-off site. They would just simply have to drive all the way over to the county landfill.
Tom, if we were to eliminate the open access for everybody so that we maintained getting half of our funding from the county, but if our haulers were providing curbside pickup for everybody that's on this map that could get it, what would be your thoughts of providing a community site where they could drop off their trash or their recycling, but it would be on a fee basis? I would imagine that the majority of things that are dropped off now, if people had curbside pickup, would go away. Your volume would go way down. And so would it offset what we're getting charged by, or what we're getting paid by the county if we didn't have all that coming in from residents that could do it at their curbside?
I guess I would want to defer possibly to Dre to talk about. He had some thoughts on it that he started to share with us, and
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great question. You know, we've kind of, it's all speculation at
Right.
this point. We don't really know. We would expect to see anywhere but from about 2/3 to about half of the volume you currently see. Of course, it wouldn't happen overnight.
Right.
You know, you'd have people transitioning. Not everyone's going to sign up for service immediately, things like that. But we would potentially see that reduction in recyclables. Of course, another thing you got to deal with too is, you know, how many of those folks simply just enjoy having something that they can quick drop off. They don't want a can at the end of their driveway, things like that. So again, it's all speculative, but we would potentially see a reduction.
Well, I think one of the things that we've talked about at our previous meeting was the amount of material that's brought in from people coming back from Walker or Bemidji or wherever, and they're dropping it off in our community because it's free.
Mhm.
If we were charging them for that, could we offset some of that cost of having that ability by out of towners?
I think
So-
what you might lose there is the county funding
Yeah,
at
that's what I
that
was
point.
just gonna
And
say.
so
I mean,
by
if-
offsetting
right.
it half, now you're paying the full of potentially half of the volume. You're probably not saving anything is all I'm.
No,
I'm
I know,
saying.
but what I'm saying is if we didn't have to build a new site and we were able to use the existing site that we have now because our volume was cut by half or 2/3 and we were making money off it, even if we lost the half that we got from the county, if it was costing us half as much because our volume went down, we're out the same. And if we could make money off of out of
Potentially,
towners,
yeah. Yep.
I guess I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, you're out of towners. Just to clarify, you know, from Walker down through Pine River, Cass County provides mini drop sites that are right on that 371 corridor as well. But you definitely have, that through traffic, they're coming through Nisswa, they stop, get gas or whatever it might be.
Yep.
They utilize that site.
And it's also local businesses, to be honest. There's a lot of local businesses. If you go down there and look at the addresses that are on boxes, it's a lot of local businesses that are abusing that system.
I'll just touch on that quick. You did have a hauler in town here that chose to quit doing its recycling services about the time they quit doing them for the city. And yeah, we've got cameras there and they really do work. You guys in your police department's been great at catching some of the people that have done some of the more troublesome things, but cardboard and much of that tonnage we're talking about there, about 50% of that is cardboard. And only thing I would suggest is there's a lot of options for cardboard. Our company collects 140 ton a month, I believe, of cardboard right now from commercial businesses that we collect. And there's plenty of haulers out there that will do that. But it's an easy drop for them, so they use it. Their glass is an easy drop for them. Many of them will just run the glass containers over and things of that nature. So if it would go away, I have a feeling there's options out there. It's just they've chose to use that instead of finding a different vendor and relationships they may have had for many years. So, but a lot of the volume we believe as well is commercial, especially on the cardboard front.
Right. I guess my point, Tom, is that we're looking, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about is the price of, 70,000 a year that we're paying for the recycling. But it's also the $350,000 that we have to pay in a capital expense up front. If we were able to eliminate that $350,000 and went with curbside recycling and then charge for people that don't have access to it, but we were able to keep the existing site that's already paid for, I guess that's where I'd be more.
So I want to address that there would be no cost to the existing site. That's not entirely true.
Right, I understand that.
It does need some upgrades to
Mhm.
continue to operate. One, the fencing would have to be
Yep.
put in. Two, there probably would have to be some increase in size because we currently have bins that are sitting on the grass.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't anticipate it getting any smaller because, we still have a steady growth rate. So even if for a while it drops or is held steady, eventually that'll catch up and it'll start growing again. The other thing that Dre had brought up is we have a lot of seasonal residents who are Nisswa taxpayers,
Mhm.
but they're here for such a short time, they don't want to sign up for service. So that's their service. So we do have a fair volume there too.
And by leaving that available to them, I don't have a problem with that, but charge them for it.
I would like to be able to charge them for that. Unfortunately, what the county has said. So whether it offsets or not completely, I don't know.
I'm just saying
If
it
we
might be
wanted
an
to go
option.
that way, we could talk about that being a smaller option. So I'm gonna let Joe, when he gets to the cost estimates, because, well, let me explain a little bit. So that third of $1 million isn't just recycling, that's also those other services that I mentioned. So when you get down to just recycling, I want to say it was about $1,250,000. Huh? Thank you.
But would we need to increase the size if we had curbside pickup?
Oh, here,
Yeah.
144. Yeah, there at the other site, it's part of the recycling center site.
Right.
Would be 141,000 if it was located out by the treatment facility.
Right.
And 144,000 upgrade this one, put in the same systems that would be over there.
Right, but would we need to upgrade this? I understand we still need.
No,
the fencing
no,
and whatnot,
that's
but-
if you upgrade. If
Right.
you're gonna go a different route or talking something different, then
Yeah.
that's not apples and oranges.
Right.
Yeah, I think we could do what you're saying in either site.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
You know, so if that 141,000 and that level of service isn't what you want to provide, we could shrink that down to more what you're saying. And let's say it became a $75,000 site, it would probably be comparable at either location.
To give you how much volume we're getting out of a similar town size, Pine River, our route is about 700 stops and about 60% participation in recycling. And we pull 3 ton a week out of that is all for how much residential recycling is coming, would come out of there is about, I'd guess here, you might have a higher participation rate here, I would say, than say Pine River would be. For example, like Cross Lake is 90% participation, but let's just say it's 5 ton a week then that potentially you might pull out of that current volume year round. You know, that's kind of our year round average is 3 ton a week.
So if that's 3 tons a week, you're looking at about 150 tons a year.
Correct.
That would
That you
come
would
out of
take
our-
out of
Right. out
that
of the 500 and
550 that we're estimating. Yep.
Right. I mean,
We've gotten into a lot of what you were be talking about, the pros and cons of recycling, I guess, curbside recycling. That's the next item that we have here.
Yeah, I guess I would just ask, Dre, is there anything more you want to add to what you've already provided us as far as pros and cons of the curbside or anything about the drop-off site that we should know?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add, of course, we look at this site out at Lower Roy Lake Road, and this was kind of you came to us with a, hey, blank slate, what would work best for any hauler that came and offered the city of Nisswa services at that location, right? So we did that. We've got a little, truck. We did turning radius, that was the best, right? And we're not dealing with that at the fire hall currently. Quite honestly, you had 20 feet to the back of that current one, and we could service more volume. I don't think that necessarily answers all the questions either. We don't necessarily even care that our dumpsters are on concrete. It's nice. It's great for the constituent or whoever's using it. It's not muddy, but when our dumpsters sit on the grass, it doesn't hurt our truck. It doesn't hurt our driver. It's more of just something that's nice to use. So yeah, when we talk about these different sites and we overlay it, that's all wonderful. But yeah, I mean, we easily could do 20 feet off the back, add another row, and that could get you another year. I don't think that's a long-term solution necessarily, but it is a possibility. Yeah, as far as pros and cons, I think you guys kind of have what we put together there, and I think we've discussed most of them.
Thank you.
Okay, did you have any more questions for them about that, Tom? No, Gil? No. Cam? Okay. Well, then let's go to the next item here, the presentation for Parks Land Grant Resolution and DNR requirements. Amber.
Good evening. I'm Amber, Nisswa Park and Rec Director. I've given you guys 2 memos now, so I'm happy to be in front of you and have this interaction and dialogue. In April, I did let you guys know that the Gullick Trail is going to be constructed probably next year, which is going to run parallel to Lower Roy Lake Road. We are underway in our master park planning process. Right now, we are doing an initial intake survey, trying to figure out what desires the community has. And then the second step to that will be a concept design for both the city park here as well as the Camp Lincoln Road parcels that we've acquired. So we are underway in our master planning process. Right now it's an intake survey. About August, September, they're going to be working on concept design. So that's kind of why some of these things are important for us to know, because we have to kind of figure out how to utilize some of that land. In the memo that I wrote to you guys, based off of April's dialogue and the potential to expand into the wooded lot east of there, I did some research into how we acquired that land. I was able to find the resolution that the city had for the acquisition of the land. And after that, every layer, we're getting more questions here. So after that resolution, I was able to go back to the DNR and get a copy of the contract with the subsequent map and follow up grant reviews, which are all in your packet there. Big piece of information that we've received is that part of the grant requirement is that it is to be maintained as public outdoor recreation forever. There are steps here that we could go through should we want to convert the land. Some of those follow-up questions, and I just received a response today from our grant coordinator. We've had two different funding sources for some of the grants that we've received for City Park. I asked what conditions or considerations do we need to be aware of in asking to convey the land. We would need review and approval from the National Park Service, as we did receive some federal dollars. I asked for clarification, one requirement of converting the land is that we need to demonstrate there is no reasonable alternative for the proposed conversion in order for the request to be considered, and they confirm that is correct. We need to do an analysis of all alternatives, including no action alternative. And then the conversion is the only alternative, then we can ask for permission to convert the land. Couple other follow-up questions. Should we choose to move forward and try and move it up the chain? If this grant could possibly be grandfathered in to anything about replacement land, and no, it cannot be grandfathered in. We would need to, there's certain requirements. We would have to buy replacement land. Land that we have since acquired, such as Nisswa Lake Park or Camp Lincoln, does not count. And there's certain stipulations that we would need to get additional land at fair market value. I do have a clarifying question on that one, but those are some of the responses that we did receive. So I think it is important to note that in order for us to ask to convert that land, there has to be no alternative option for it to be considered.
Okay.
So happy to elaborate more on this, answer any questions, or continue to get more clarifying answers from the DNR.
I just have a real quick question. So the no alternative means that, I mean, we would have to, taking it to the industrial zone as an alternative, I take it. That's what they're looking at.
I would say the industrial zone, curbside, and also no action
Yeah.
are all things that I believe they would consider as an alternative. So in their words, that there is no reasonable alternative. So reasonable would be the term in question. What is reasonable?
Mhm.
And that would be what we would need to vet through this process.
Okay. Do you have a question, Galen?
No, I think what Tom has put forward as our alternative, I think kind of throws out unreasonable. So I don't see there's any way that we can expand into that space. I mean, there are alternatives. There's curbside that we can keep things as they are. We can move to this other site. I think that trying to go down the route of expanding the existing site is probably not gonna happen.
Well, and I think not having recycling is not gonna make sense either. We got 500 tons. That's not really environmentally friendly to have people drive 500 tons for, what is it, 30 miles one way to that Crow Wing County. I mean, that's not
No, I agree.
cost effective either.
Okay. Anything, Dale?
No, I agree with the same.
Tom? Okay. No more questions then for her? Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
Okay, then we'll go on to number 10 here, which is the revised cost estimates. Or YSF. So Joe. You talked a little bit about it, but yeah.
Tom asked me to put together some numbers a couple months back. We had done a couple renditions. It's on.
Sorry.
We did a couple of renditions earlier and then kind of fine tuned it with some of the, I think it was you guys that provided some of the information for that. And earlier I did say that, I mean, in round numbers here, you can do the whole package. I think we had it, was it $453,100. If that total site was to be done, that would include the impound, the recycling, the shooting range. That's it, right? Yeah. Oh, and
Demolition.
excuse me, the what's there right now?
Demolition.
Yes, demolition. So all those would be in there. It would be one site for it. It'd be fenced off for the shooting range. There would be security on there so that we could either open it or close it or however. They even talked about maybe a code one that you could get in or something that we have over at the wastewater treatment facility. I don't know if that was it.
Yeah, at the time, we were wondering how we could fund this thing to build it and operate it. We thought we were gonna be losing all the county funding at the time we began to propose the concept. So one of the ideas was we didn't want to have a demand site, so how could we electronically charge? And it was to have a coded gate.
Anyways, yeah, and the first page that I have there, I kind of, that's the summation page. Where it breaks it down to individual breakdown, recycling center comparison, and then the overlay that would, I think that would almost need to be done if you maintain it out here. Is that why the overlay on that, the pavement for the access?
For the existing site? Yeah, so right now Park Avenue isn't paved and it gets a lot of traffic related to the recycling. I think if we're gonna continue to expand that or use it, we should probably pave that street.
So I've got them all broken down to where it comes down to the fire hall was approximately 144,325. And the recycling center out at LRLR or Lower Roy Lake Road was 141,450. Now, obviously, we're at a level up here when we're doing these numbers. We haven't fine tuned them, so I would anticipate they'd be a little better than that. But with what we just heard there too, this is probably a moot point. So, you got any questions for me on the costs?
I had one just that, you have all 4 different costs here, one for the compost, for the impound, and for the shooting range, as well as for recycling. These can all be built independently at those costs.
And that's what I kind of got down here. If you're gonna independently or let me just check one thing here.
Yeah, because I really
Yeah,
don't.
if it was a total job, it was the first number on top of 388.
Right.
That was if we were to do the whole impound lot and everything. But then it asked me to break them down because we wanted to do a comparison between if we put an expansion back by the park or if we did just the recycling center there. And that's where the 144 and the 141 come in. They're about second from the bottom there. Just if you just look at the first page.
Right.
They're compared there. And then on the individual breakdown, they're broken down in there. If you were to do one at a time type of thing, it would probably, the total cost would be 453,100. If you were to say, do the impound lot today, and then next year you do the recycling center type of thing. So you're gonna add costs to that because you have to double up on some of the things that you do. And if you did the whole project as one project, it would be, you know, you'd save almost what, $80,000 just on this estimate here.
To do it all at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, there's value in that, but
Well, what I'm looking at here is that if there was the cost to just do the recycling center, just forget everything else, just, well, we're talking about recycling center, you'd also have to put in that, I assume, the road for that 33,900 something,
which, if you're gonna do the recycling center, where?
in the industrial area.
No, we would.
Oh,
The
you
road
would?
is for, that road was for back here.
Oh, that's for here, if we
Yeah,
expanded
for
here.
the other, if we did the other one, I think the wear and tear and the access and stuff, that's kind of why the road would be done. It would have an effect on that.
Oh, so this is Park Avenue?
Yeah, the one at the bottom here for 33,000, we just threw that in at the end. It's the
Park
one.
Avenue,
Park
little
Avenue.
road from the fire hall back to Church
Yeah.
Street.
Because that would be the
Okay.
one I'm assuming they'd be coming in there now, not so much around. And we talked about that would tack on, and that's not on the recycle one by itself for an expansion behind the fire hall. That would have to be added in too.
And
So
the
really,
reason-
you're at 170 change or 175.
And the reason for adding that on is so the truck could go in from that direction rather than through the fire hall? Is that it?
So one of the reasons we were looking, excuse me, at paving that road was, one, the existing traffic goes through there, but two, we had also talked about, because of the conflict that we witnessed with the fire department itself, at that time, we were considering maybe using more of the parkland for the recycling and just getting them off the fire hall site, but leaving it basically in the same area. At that case, then all the traffic would be coming and going from Park Avenue, which is a gravel road, and it's a poor gravel road.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it would need to be upgraded.
So to try to keep all that traffic away from the fire
That would
department
be the
area.
idea, yes.
Okay.
I guess maybe that was part of the safety issue.
Okay. Any questions on that then? Tom? Joe? Okay. Cam? Galen? Okay, thank you. Then we'll go on to comments from Sean. Nisswa Fire Chief regarding the recycling location.
Good evening, I'm your fire chief, Sean Bailey. For you guys that haven't met me, I think everybody has, except for you, I don't think I've met you yet. Anyway, safety concerns. I sent a letter, an email out to you guys. I hope everybody received it and read it. People just aren't smart. I don't know how to even else put it. We have trainings at the back of our fire hall. We just had an LP burn here 3 weeks ago, and 18 cars during our hour-and-a-half training pull up there. We get yelled at, screamed at, cussed at. They proceed on to drive around our trucks when we block the road off to train in the back of our fire hall, drive to the community center's grass, walk through our live propane burn is a live fire burn, driving across our hoses to get to their recycling in the back. Then they go around to Park Avenue. When we push them that way, they proceed to drive around the trucks there. It's crazy. Like I say, people just aren't smart. Live fire burning there. I'm really concerned. If a fireman gets hit, what kind of workman's comp claim am I gonna have? If a community citizen gets burnt, hit, hurt back there, what kind of lawsuit are you opening yourself up to there? So to me, the recycling behind the fire hall has been a huge safety concern. Recently, our engine one was leaving to go to some kind of grass fire, and we're under the red coming out of our building with the lights and the sirens and screaming, and a car decides to come in the do not enter side of it, going to the recycling. This is a continuous thing. I mean, Tom, you could admit that's how they come in. You see it every day, including yourself. So, I mean, it happens. It's happening every day. We had a meeting last night. An hour and a half in our meeting, 18 cars to recycling. So this thing is used. It's just a huge safety concern. When it went in several years ago, we used to land the helicopter in the back of the building. It's an unofficial landing site for North Air Care. They prefer to land in the back because of the trees over Hills Crossing rather than land in the front. It's not used a lot because recycling has been there. We have used the front a little bit here and there when the ball field's full. So another thing you got to ask yourself, another thing is safety. If it's your loved one that needs to be airlifted out for a heart problem or whatever it be, wouldn't you want to have a nice landing zone there, especially in the city of Nisswa? So that's the other concern we have. We lost that ability when you put it there. The mess that we incur every day there is astronomical. The cameras do catch them, but just walk over there. You're welcome to come over in August when we do our hose testing. That's probably a good example. We close the whole facility off. Can't come in by the community center. You can't come in the park. We shut it off because we lay out all of our hoses. FireCat is a testing facility, comes in and test our hose. And these people will drive around the barricades in the trucks through the grass to get the recycling. It's just what they do. You don't believe it? Come out, sit down for the day and watch. It's an 8-hour hose test. It's happened, I think, on August 18th. You're welcome to come join me. Bring your work gloves. I'll put you to work too, so you can see it throughout the day. But it's a huge safety problem for us. And just the mess alone is terrible. I mean, really, truly, the oil collection center, do we call the EPA out and have them do some soil samples there and dig all the spillage up? I don't know. It's terrible. And I don't think that we should have the most ugliest thing the city has to offer next to the most beautiful thing the city has to offer. So something else to consider. But my drive is the safety side of it. One of my guys gets hurt, we can't help you or help the community. We hurt the community. What kind of lawsuit are we open up for? So that's just my concerns. I think I covered my whole email.
Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions? Tom, Gil?
I just have, this sounds like you've had this problem with people a long time over there.
Yes,
How often do you call the law enforcement to deal with them?
never.
Why?
Just
Just-
why get in that?
Just let
that
them be
match?
doing it
No,
then.
we usually talk to him and he turns into a swearing cussing match. And by the time law enforcement gets there, 90% of them are gone. Don't drive around it. I mean, when you have 20 guys out back of there and you're flowing water, they're in and out. Do you really want to stop your training about every 9 minutes you get a car? In an hour and a half for 18 cars, you'd have to do the math to see how soon we get one. I mean, do you stop your training and, we're paying for the training. Unfortunately, training isn't free when you bring in people. So what do you do? I mean, I would love for you guys to come on the second and fourth Tuesday when we decide to do our drills back there, and you can be the law enforcement caller person.
Just a suggestion from the community.
Yeah,
Maybe if it's that bad, you should ask law enforcement to just park there.
we can do that. I
I
would
mean,
love to do
it
that.
sounds like it's horrible over there. So maybe,
Yeah.
do a little bit more to stop that, because I wouldn't want to see a fireman get hurt either.
And we've tried signage. We put up our signage, drill in progress. So, I mean, we're trying.
Tom, can we close down the recycling center on days that they're doing training? Can we limit those hours?
I think Sean is is doing what can be done. Sort of having.
There's
a
no
fence.
gates, you
Yeah,
know, and
we don't have gates.
what do you,
that can be closed.
how do you close park and how do you close, I don't know what you call that road around my fire hall that goes from the ball field in. No. No, is it park all the way through, all the way out to the community center? I don't know. But, so we close it off when you go down Main Street, take a right, you take a left to go to the fire hall. We whack it right there, that intersection where our flower garden is. And then because they're coming in the other way, got to give them an escape route. And then we close off at park. But like I say, they just flat drive through the grass. So
Can we have law enforcement out there on days that they're doing training?
That would be a question for the police chief, I guess.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I mean, I don't.
we
wanna
do
see
our
any of you
best. I
guys
mean,
get
we
hurt.
ask, can you please go around the park or can you come back another day? And
Right.
we turn into be the bad people real quick.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Comments?
Nope.
Okay, Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, so then now I would like to, now that we've finished this here, is there any questions that we wanted to revisit real quick before we go open it up to the public? Anything else? Okay, then I'd like to open up, would anyone like to ask questions of the presentators today? Anything here? Paula? Comments? Yeah. Mhm. Okay, please come up and just state your name again and for the record, sorry.
I'm Russ Yankee. I live right next to the sewer pond on Lower Roy Lake Road, but a question for Waste Partners. And Tom, you're saying that over the course of the last few years, the tonnage has went up and up and up and up every year. But has that fee stayed at 30,000 or 35,000 for those years?
It has gone up, but the last 2 years, Waste Partners has been able to charge us a flat fee. And so it's been flat the last.
Yeah, because I'm pretty familiar with trucking and I know all about tonnage and I've hauled in and out of huge recycling centers and everything is by the weight, So takes me to my next point. Why wouldn't it just go curbside? And everybody be done with the cost to the taxpayers and the weight on Lower Roy Lake Road, that road will break up over the course of time if it gets moved out there. Sean said it best, a dirty, messy spot by the fire station, but now it's okay to move it from there and move it out right by my house. It just, to me, put it, if you want recycling, you pay the hauler X dollars a month and you get a recycling bin and you deal with it like most other places do. Why go to all this expense? It sounds like you obviously can't do anything behind the fire station, right? So the only alternative is, in the minds of everybody else, is we'll move it out Lower Roy Lake Road. Well, but yet the papers that blow around and I love the fire department. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or anything like that. I'm just talking, the mess is going to go from one spot to another where there's at least people around at the fire station to kind of somewhat monitor or see what goes on. What's going to happen when it's out and it's next to my property? I have 14 acres.
Well, the idea is that you have a sewer plant between you and recycling.
No, the sewer pond is behind, I believe.
No, but you have the city's other property that the sewer ponds are on.
Right.
And then there's also a state pit between.
No,
you
the
and-
state pit is on the other side of Sharman Avenue.
They also
Which-
own a little bit on the other side of Sharman Avenue. too.
Which brings me to another point. I've asked the city for 6 years to provide me or show me a survey when my mother-in-law sold, gave, traded, whatever that land to the city of Nisswa to add on to the sewer pond? Tom, I mean, nobody can come up with it. Why is that? But now there's gonna be and when I paid and had a survey done of the 57 acres, our fence line, my property line now is from that chair to me, according to the survey I paid for. And then I get city employees that come out there, and my mother-in-law had a fence line put down between the new sewer pond and her property because of horses. And they're talking, they want to put a road right along that to get back to the cell phone tower that has an address of Lower Roy Lake Road. But where's the survey? Where did they start that survey from? I saw ribbons tied in my tree branches, orange ribbons, but what are they using? Because Stonemark couldn't find the east end of my property.
I'm not prepared to answer that question.
I know.
tonight.
And I think maybe what you should do is really bring that up to the city as well then.
I've
That-
talked to the mayor just about 3 times a month at the gas station and saying, hey, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
So who would actually do that survey?
So we've
We would
had,
hire someone, right?
yeah, we hire Widseth. They have a survey department. That's
Okay.
Who does our surveys.
Well, shouldn't it have been surveyed back at the time? Because when that fence line was put in, I'm assuming it's either right on or real close to the property line. You know, why would the city have put it this far off the property line? To give the city more land or take more of mine? That's the issue.
I guess I'm not, so
Well-
you're saying that the fence isn't on the property line?
I'm saying I was under the assumption, because it's right in line with the cell phone tower. You go straight down through, then it jogs over and comes back out to Lower Roy Lake Road.
Tell them.
So-
100-year-old
Cut 'em off.
fence, barbed wire fence that's been there. We're 10 feet from it with a stake that I paid, stone marked it, but, and the same thing, it went the other side of Lower Roy Lake Road to the west.
So
Okay, I'm sorry to interject in here, but we're getting off onto a
Yeah,
different
I know.
subject here. So
But, you know, I just
I
heard
would
earlier about a
bring that up.
survey
Mhm.
for this property out on Lower Roy Lake Road. And it's like, well, how can you do that when my east line isn't even really determined?
I can't
I
answer.
we
don't-
can't answer
well-
that here, so I suggest we go ahead and
But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm all for garbage company stops at everybody's driveway,
okay.
picks up recycling, you know. The mess is gonna end up out there. I pick up enough garbage from people throwing beer cans and everything else in the shortcut from the pickle factory to Zorba's, you know, every summer. And now you're gonna put the bike path out there too, you know, it's all on my side of the road. It's like, come on, how much stuff you wanna cram right in there? You know, so.
Well, thank you. But what I'm really, well, does anyone else want to say something here? Any other thing? Go ahead, Paula.
I don't have any questions relative to the presentations that were made. Thank you. That was very helpful information. I am disappointed that you approved minutes that didn't accurately reflect what happened at the public meeting, and I encourage you to listen to the transcript of the meeting, and you will see that the 3 paragraphs described was not presented to the public prior to the public being opened up to comment. So just leave that at that. What I really wanted to say to you is that I'm just overall disappointed in how this whole process has unveiled itself about the proposed recycling center. It has been inadequately provided, information provided to the public from the start. I first learned about this project back in June of 2021 when I read a report of a meeting in the Echo paper. And I was immediately interested because I live on Lower Roy Lake Road, and daily I see how dangerous that road is. There is heavy traffic that drives too fast, comes around bends that have no sight lines. There's bicycles. Now we have golf carts. In the summer, there's a tremendous amount of pedestrians. We have construction vehicles. And a backage road is not going to solve Copper Creek's problem because Copper Creek has a storage shed across the road from where the city's property is, and they move their vehicles up and down the road all day long. And so I'm concerned about the safety. I don't disagree that the city needs to do something about recycling. I don't personally use the recycling center because I have curbside recycling from Waste Partners, which I appreciate. But I see what the problem is there, of course, and you do need to do something. But I think you have to also consider the safety to the residents. And you refer to this new proposed recycling center as being in the industrial area. Well, yes, it's industrial right there where you're proposing it, but you have to go through heavy residential areas on either end of Lower Roy Lake Road to get to your proposed site. And the backage road is still 2030 in Tom's memo, said 2030. MnDOT hasn't even done a traffic survey and there's property to be purchased. That's not a short-term problem to the traffic issues that are going to be caused there. By the time I learned about this project in June of 2021, the Public Works Department had already drawn up a preliminary draft plan. And then they asked the city for $5,000 to do an engineering plan. And there was no public input. There were no public meetings prior to that. And in the transcripts of the June 30th, 2021 Public Works meeting, when asked by the committee members if there would be any opposition to the proposed relocation plan, Mr. Bloomer replied, and I quote, and you can listen to the transcript, "There won't be any opposition because the public wants continued recycling." Well, that's a huge reach and assumption to that because residents at previous meetings had indicated a desire to have continued recycling, that means they don't care where the location is. Those are two very different issues. Wanting it and where it's going to be have different outcomes and different impacts to the citizens of Nisswa. Now it's almost a year later, and finally there was a public hearing in April about this after engineering plans had already been drawn up and still not much public knowledge about the project. I talked with my neighbors. I talked with people all up and down Hazelwood Drive, which are the residential streets that will be impacted by this. Some people were aware of it. Most people were not aware of it, but everybody's concerned about the traffic along there. And unfortunately, most citizens just don't want to take the time to get involved. And that's why you don't see a lot of citizens here. And quite frankly, I didn't know this meeting was purported to be an additional informational meeting on the recycling process. And the city did not even offer an option until the hearing that happened in April, and there was concern brought up, and then you did take a look at it. So really, my message to the committee is that you cannot isolate the public from input into processes, and at the end, you've got to engage the public at the beginning of any project that is going to impact the residents and the taxpayers of this city. Why wasn't the public engaged early on? Maybe it was because of that assumption that they didn't care, but they do care. And we, the taxpayers, deserve to have information, not information that's hidden on your Facebook page or hidden on your website or put on the bulletin board out here or posted at the chamber bulletin board. We need information in the paper. You could easily write articles about what you're doing to keep the public informed. You could get on radio shows. You've got to do better outreach to the public about what's going on in this city. So I just contend that if you had, we wouldn't be where we're at here. And now there are hard feelings that have been created about this whole process. And so I just implore you, any other projects that come up or the city or any other department in the city, you've got to engage the public earlier on in processes that affect us and that we are paying money as taxpayers to cover the costs of. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay. Roger?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Roger Landers. I live on Edna Lake Road. So I'm also disappointed in and I guess I don't want to be redundant to what Paula said, but it's as though the public has been less informed at the end of the process rather than at the end. It's unfortunate that the land behind the current recycling center can't be used, where it's apparent that it's going to be too much of a process to get go through the process, both federal and state, to even try to get the land when we've got other options. So no doubt the expanding the current recycling center has got to be moved elsewhere if we want to do that. I'm glad that we finally got some curbside information tonight. That's, I think, what's been missing all along in this information package. And I guess I want to know what is the city going to do with curbside? We've got some information tonight. So you guys have spoke and asked questions about curbside. I want to know where we're going to go with curbside, because I think that's the real answer here. And possibly, as you indicated, that could be part of the combined program is get curbside and keep the existing drop off back here. So I want now that we finally getting all the information out. I want to know more about curbside, and I want to know what you guys are going to do with curbside.
So can I?
No, go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
We have a survey, and quite some of the questions on there were directed at whether the city should provide the service through curbside recycling. So we are going to get an opinion through that of how people feel about curbside recycling versus a drop-off site. So once we get that information, these gentlemen up here, including with what they've heard tonight, should be able to make some kind
Tom,
of rational decision.
I appreciate that comment, but I took the survey. I don't remember any question about curbside on it. I made in the comments section at the very end, one of the comments I made was, well, there wasn't any curbside questions. So how are we going to get curbside information from the survey when there were no questions asked about curbside?
I would have to go print off a copy of the questions, but I do believe it was addressed in there.
Okay, well, I have to go back and look.
I believe it was in there.
It was?
Yes, I believe it was.
There was a question on curbside?
Yes, whether you support a
Yeah.
curbside pickup.
Okay, well, my error then if there was, but there's going to be more, there will have to be more input on curbside than what you're going to get from a survey, I'm guessing. That you're going to have to put more energy into it.
What the survey does is it gives it this committee direction. It gives them where do we go to look? Where do we go with that? So it's up to them then to fill in the details of costs, where it can be provided.
Yeah.
Get information on an ordinance for it if that was desired.
Yeah, I think really what we're looking at trying to do here is we're looking basically tonight, I was thinking of 3 different options. One is that you would have curbside. The other would be that you would expand what we have currently at that location. And a third would be to take it out to that other site. So tonight with the information that we're getting, like, I agree with you. It sounds to me like that second one, expanding the current site, is going to be rather difficult to accomplish. But now that we have more on this curbside, I've been hearing from the people I've been talking to, everybody wants to have recycling, a drop site for recycling. So that's what I've been hearing, but I can't answer, where, what the details are on that yet. As far as if we had curbside, we're just learning about what it would cost roughly and some ideas, but it's rather difficult right now to be able to answer that.
And then according to this map here, there's an awful lot of places that aren't going to get curbside. There's a lot of red lines.
But there are some that can be. I live on the end of Lake Road and it could be done.
Can
So I
those-
got a question for Waste Partners.
Please,
This
please,
is
yes,
more
that's why they're here.
Educational for me. So what's the difference between one of your trucks that picks up garbage versus one of, do you have a different truck for curbside?
Yes, we do have a different truck for curbside. They're collected separately, of course. They go to two different locations. So they're processed in two different locations.
So one truck can't pick up both garbage and recycling at the same time?
Our industry has those vehicles available. However, currently, including ourselves, we had one of those vehicles, but no one that I know of in this area currently has
Okay.
an operational vehicle.
All right, very good. I believe that's all the questions I got for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name's Greg Newmeyer. I'm at 25178 Nisswa Lake Lane, and I purposely waited till the end, and I've got a bunch of comments, but you know, what's come up tonight to me is that this process has been very flawed because it already went to how are we going to move the recycling, and because the process has got to that what's happened tonight is you've got all the city employees working together with their fellow city employee to justify what he wants to do. And last April, you had a public hearing and it was all about safety on Hazelwood and Lower Roy Lake Road. And there was not one presentation tonight about safety. And I live out on Nisswa Lake Lane, coming over, or this morning, leaving at 8:15, there was 3 people walking dogs in that little short stretch. So everything the fire chief said tonight just documents why you shouldn't move it out there. And by having that backage road map kind of shows that you know it's an issue. And if you move it before the backage road, I think you guys have created liability for the city because you've created a record that you know there's a safety issue. And if you move it before the backage road and then there's an accident, I think you've created liability for the city. And the other thing I want to say, I am from Iowa and I work in economic development in my small town. So, you know, I get small town politics. You guys are in a tough spot because you've got city people you work with, but you've got taxpayers as well. One of the things that I've noticed since the April meeting is the Nisswa police are on Hazelwood and Lower Roy Lake Road almost daily. And in fact, tonight, right at the corner, there's that radar sign that the police have. So somebody's recognized there's a safety issue on those roads. And so again, why wasn't the police here when last time all you heard about was safety? Then police not being here to me is covering up an issue that was brought up to you guys. Yeah, I think it was a Saturday after the last April meeting. There was a mother walking her baby in a stroller. There was kids on bikes. There was kids on skateboards. If you guys haven't driven down Lower Roy Lake Road on a nice Saturday morning, you need to do that. You know, I live there, so I know you can't go very fast because you can't see around those corners. But if you're going to direct a whole bunch of people out there that don't live there, there's going to be an accident, and that's going to cause liability for the city. To me, this whole process, what's wrong with the process is you didn't start with the whole question of the purpose of the recycling center, who does it serve? To me, that's where you need to go back to and create an independent committee that doesn't have conflicts. That was one of my other things is, you know, having the curbside information is helpful, but it's from the person that's going to lose the contract. So, you know, you guys have to recognize that's a blatant conflict of interest right there, that they're saying, oh, we shouldn't do that. Well, they're going to lose $70,000 of business. You know, sorry, but that should be you guys's role to figure that out. But it seems like you need to start a public process of what's the purpose of the recycling center. what do we do? Is it just for city residents? Because after the last meeting, after everybody left, you guys had a discussion, and it seems like everybody knows there's businesses using it and all these other things, and nobody wants to deal with that because they just want to move it and not have to deal with it. So, until you really figure that part out, then all these numbers of use are pretty meaningless. You got to kind of get the abuse stopped. Then you can say, all right, now what's our volume? What'll be a traffic impact? But until you get that first step, I don't know how you can really do anything else. Somebody else mentioned it, but Lower Roy Lake Road today has several spots where it's just blacktop got filled in where there's utility work and stuff. And, you talked about needing to do this road over here. If you're going to add traffic on Lower Roy, you really need to improve that to a full city street. And that would be a huge project for you to do because you really, you just can't hardly get two vehicles, let alone bikes and all that stuff on there. So, I really hope that you'll step back a little bit and from the committee standpoint, really look at what are the interests of the residents versus the city employees and all this, because I think, what you've done so far is just created a record that if you do move it and there's an accident, there's going to be a lot of liability for the city and for the people that ignored what the citizens told them. So thanks for listening.
Anybody else? Okay, yes, please.
I'm just judging the questions we're having. I'm not sure we clarified the curb saying that it's not a nirvana. It's not the end of your problems. And I just wanted to make sure that we said that Waste Partners does not care if it's this site, a site out at Charmin, curbside collection. We just asked for a level playing field throughout the entire process. That's what we've kind of said. But the things that aren't being considered about curbside, we think that it's going to be the answer to all our problems. Well, every garbage company is now going to have 2 trucks in your community. There's going to be double the number of receptacles at the end of every driveway. Some of them, people that leave throughout the week and they get left out there the entire time until they're back, which might be 2-3 weeks later, maybe all winter long. We've dealt with this in all sorts of communities. So I just want to make sure that we know that there's more to this than what we've talked about tonight. You mentioned the number of locations we can't do. So do we provide another location anyway for those locations as a city? Do you do that? And if so, are you still not going to have the same traffic? I just wanted to make sure that people knew and understand that curbside collection is not the be all end all to your problems, because these other communities have done the same thing. They're like, well, man, we've got all these trucks. Well, some communities are now requiring, and the state of Minnesota is considering it, yard waste collection be mandated for municipalities. That's another receptacle in another truck. And we have to go back and pick up any appliances or electronics, that all these things that have been banned from the landfill all creates traffic, and traffic is a concern to every municipality I've ever met. And whether it be for safety reasons or wear and tear and all those kinds of things. And there's a lot of discussion that can have there. And I've got a lot of studies and a lot of information that provides you with good information when you start going down that road. But I just want to make sure that the people in the neighborhoods also know that Roy Lake Road now is going to have double the number of trucks just from curbside recycling. That process alone will double the number of those trucks. So
There's going to be triple the number of trucks coming in and out the dumpster.
it wouldn't be trucks. It would be your traffic that will go up significantly, astronomically, will be household traffic of those people the city of the fire department was talking about. So I agree with that too. I'm just saying that there's pros and cons to everything. And that's what the difficulty of your group has got, to make sure you're asking those questions, getting to the bottom of it, working with us. And again, you want a citizen action committee as a part of it. I think that's all well and good. I've been a part of this conversation with you for now 3 years. And I think it started as public 2 years ago. If you remember in the thing, I said, I couldn't believe the room wasn't full when we started that process. It was in the paper, those kinds of things. So I know it's been going on a long time. The hard part is people are busy, and it is good that you're listening, that you're taking this time tonight, and I thank you for that. Again, we just want to work with you and throughout the process, determine the best way forward for everybody. And all we want is a level playing field. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And one final question I had really is, it's the areas that are not covered, that you don't have coverage in. If we went for recycling, they would still not be able to be covered, right? You still would not be able to go into those areas? Is that just from your company or is this from any company?
It's likely, of course, competition drives many decisions, right? We might have a competitor who has a smaller truck and maybe they can access an area we can't. But the recycling industry in general operates larger trucks. And that's, again, our quick pass. We could be incorrect on some of those roads, but looking down it, we go, think of a school bus. That's the size of these trucks. If the school bus is picking the kids up at the end of the road, chances are we need to collect the can at the end of the road as well. If we see it in red, we'd be willing to let them set it at the end of, one of those roads. Are you going to be okay with that? Is the snowplow driver going to be okay with that? Those are just the questions that, if the answer is yes, then we have no problem with that. But you could mandate recycling, but as a company, we still have potentially the right to say, we just physically can't get down there. We're not going to risk our drivers or our equipment to service recycling. Is really what that boils down to. So there are alternatives. I think honestly, what you guys are kind of pitching here is a potential to continue to have a site, maybe in a smaller capacity.
So does that mean that the people that live in the areas that aren't serviced by your company, are they being serviced by somebody else?
I would say likely not. Of course, you can have Waste Partner Service in Nisswa, you can have Pequot, you can have Nisswa, you can have Waste Management.
Okay.
Just because we might say we can't go down a road doesn't necessarily mean one of those will not go down that road. But industry, vehicles and equipment and quite honestly, operations would tell you that we're likely going to be on the same page.
So what I'm hearing is that the areas that aren't being serviced that maybe have issues with trucks going down, I mean, it wouldn't work.
Correct. It would have to be, again, yeah, if it's a dead end road and it tees up to your garage or someone's garages, can we put those receptacles out on, Camp Lincoln Road instead of down every single one of those, dead end roads? And if that's possible, then while it might be red, you might still be allowed service. You just might not be allowed service at your mailbox. It might need to be a centralized location.
Thank you.
And that was when I emailed after last meeting.
Can you come up here, please? Thank you.
Because I know on our little street, we have at least 2 or 3 different trucks. And so to me, it goes back to that first question of, does Nisswa need to go to 1 hauler or 2 haulers? And how do you enforce all this? So, but again, to me, that's the step that got missed in all this is we didn't start there. We just started with, let's move it. We didn't start at the beginning. Because I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions with all that.
Thank you. Did you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick on the 1 hauler, 2 hauler, 3 hauler thing. The state of Minnesota also has another rule that says you can't displace haulers without a process called organized collection. That requires your city to go through a specific process of negotiations with those haulers. You just can't just displace them and take their business. It does end up working that way ultimately anyway, 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road. And we can talk all about that at some other point in time. But the reason why you can't the city of Nisswa, no city can just choose tomorrow we're bidding out the city. That's not in your right according to the state of Minnesota. There's 14 states in the country that require legislation that's called just compensation for hauler displacement. And they've made it illegal for municipalities to even do it in the way that the state of Minnesota does it. So I don't want to get into that. That's not what I'm wanted to talk about. But real quick, they make small garbage trucks. We buy small garbage trucks because we have a lot of lake homes that people leave on the day that their garbage isn't there. And so in order to get their business, we buy a small garbage truck to go up the drive and pick it up from them. So they never know that the garbage man was ever there. They don't make that kind of recycling truck. Okay, that recycling takes a large volume because it's not very heavy. Garbage trucks are built to handle that weight, and we can choose to buy smaller garbage trucks because I mentioned 700 stops is a big day for a route. Well, these ones around the lake where we have that small truck, it might only be 200 stops, 250. We charge more for that service to drive up the driveway and do that kind of thing. That's how we make our money on that. But they don't make that recycling truck because it would fill up too fast. And so they make these huge recycling trucks. That's why you see all the stuff we collect here. Big trucks. So lots of volume, not that much weight. And the garbage trucks are just the opposite. So that just wanted to clarify that for you a little bit too.
Can you stay up there for just a second? I do have a question for you. For other communities that are similar to us, whether it's Pequot, Cross Lake or wherever, that have gone to curbside pickup, what have you seen happen in those towns? Are they doing a split where there's still a community collection area and curbside? Or when they go to curbside, what have you seen in other communities?
So Cross Lake might be the most similar to you guys that we collect. Pequot's not that much different, but you have a lot more dead end roads than even say the city of Pequot does. But Cross Lake, we've been offering curbside collection in Cross Lake since 2007, I believe. And and for the first 15 years, or first 14, 13 years, we didn't see a huge volume spike until the county removed the funding of the one guy that was in town for a drop-off location. Many people love that drop-off, because we collect on Mondays, but not all the haulers over there do collect on Mondays. And people don't want that receptacle sitting out at the end of their driveway, but they don't really want to pay for it either. So it's easy to drop off on their way out of town. That's what you guys are seeing here in a lot of cases is the reason a lot for your growth is because the county went, actually, I think it was like 9 locations 12 years ago, steadily down until there's 3 of you now. It was only going to be 2. This was the 3rd one that we were able to negotiate and get in there with. But that's why you have a lot of drop action. And we only had 1 garbage container here when we first started. Well, now they're dropping off both their garbage and their recycling. And that's why there's 4 there now, because it just simply has grown that much from the people that were leaving their cabins and dropping off the recycling and their garbage before they head all the way back to wherever they're going.
I guess my point is for cities like Cross Lake that have done that, has there been an increase in trash around town in recycling laying out because they no longer have the community site? If we were to get rid of our community site and go to all curbside pickup, would you expect us to see all sorts of recycling floating around, cardboard boxes everywhere? Have you seen that in other communities?
No, the main reason for cardboard being an issue is just all the delivery. I mean, cardboard has exploded in our industry. And it's the real reason why we've been able to hold our costs down over the last 2 years. And they talk about, they know the cost of trucks. Yeah, my trucks and the labor and insurance that are going through the roof. But the cost of cardboard and what we get paid for it has gone also through the roof. It's gone from an industry average of $50 a ton for the last 30 years to $150 a ton, 3 times the rate that it was going for before. So that's what's reversed a lot of what the costs are to the city here that we've been able to pass along as part of our collection, and why we've been able to keep the cost down for that. But 2 years ago, cardboard and paper were almost zero. And that's when the funding for your location had to get increased quite a bit. But then since then, some of the commodities have switched in price, and that's helped things out. As long as that continues, we're in good shape. But so that is left up to the hauler. I've seen haulers that are really clean. I've seen haulers that are less clean. And again, you can hold that accountable in a licensing process for your haulers if they're getting too many complaints, and you can confirm it through someone in the public works that goes by and yeah, they did leave a mess or whatever it might be. Bears are another issue, but they don't really bother the recycling. They bother the trash, but they don't really bother the recycling. So wind, you get a real windy day and those containers get tipped over and blow around, it can happen. Most people will pick their stuff back up, and they don't like garbage in their yard any more than we like to see garbage in their yard. So our guys will pick up to what is reasonable, and we have to compete for that business. So we don't want to lose the business either. So.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has a question for any of the presenters here today? Anything further? If not, I'd like to thank all the presenters for their time and for giving us this information today. I'd like to thank you for coming here as well, listening to all of this, and for the commenters as well. So if there's no other questions, then we'll go on to the very end here. Is there anybody here on the committee that has a comment or anything else they'd like to say at the end here? If not, can I hear a motion to adjourn? And please
I
tell me.
just want to leave the room with an idea of what the next steps are. Now, I guess when I walked in here today, the options that I saw for this particular, for the recycling was the expand on site, was the new site, or this potential for curbside pickup. Are there other options that are on the table that?
I guess the last option. The last option that I see it would be a combination of a site that's communal as well as curbside.
Okay, because I guess that's a kind of a subsection of recycling, because not everybody's going to be able to be served by the curbside. So, I mean, the bottom line here is that we want people to recycle, right? That's why we do it. And if we don't offer a service that people are gonna, or it's just gonna end up in the landfill, right? Isn't that what happens? So I don't want to lose sight of that. And it seems that at this point, we're down to a new site or some type of, hybrid curbside pickup with, a drop-off point for people who can't get served. Now we have that survey that's out there, right?
Yes.
And we're going to see the results of that when?
Next month.
On the
the
11th.
next meeting.
Okay.
I'll actually be forwarding that to you ahead of the meeting quite a bit, but we will be discussing the results of the survey at our next meeting.
Okay.
Will the results of that be online?
We will also be placing the results of the survey on the website, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we talked a lot about cost tonight, and that's not the only issue. And I appreciate hearing from, people in the neighborhood, people on the street. But there are other issues, convenience and security, safety. And that's not a small issue. I've seen it, what the fire chief was talking about. I've seen it. So, this is a multi-pronged, complicated issue that I think, I guess for me, I'd be interested in seeing what the results of this survey are before we move any further ahead. To see if there's, some public support for doing this.
Yes.
And that's why I wasn't asking for any kind of a recommendation tonight.
Yeah.
This was just strictly so you could get the information I meant to provide to you back in April.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh. Anyone want to recommend that we adjourn? Make a motion.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and
Thank you.
thank you.